I'm sure that, just like any of you, if a few months back you tried to tell me that professional sports would all but cease to exist and I'd be sheltering in place for weeks on end, I would have found it laughable. I'd have thought you were crazy. A world without sports, where everyone is essentially on lockdown in their own houses? Impossible. Well, the impossible has happened, and no one is laughing. But even amid all the widespread sadness and fear that has stricken the world, there have been some heartwarming and inspiring stories that have emerged and entered into the national consciousness. Like all the other doctors, nurses, and other emergency medical service employees, first responders, and essential workers who have braved the storm by putting others before themselves. Among those making the bold decision to face the coronavirus head-on in an effort to help keep the rest of us safe as we shelter in place, Myron Rolle, a former NFL player. Perhaps you remember Rolle from his days at Florida State, where he earned ACC Defensive Rookie of the Year honors in 2006, or his insane performance against in-state rival Miami when he had what longtime FSU defensive coordinator Mickey Andrews regarded as the best and most complete game he'd ever seen a safety play. Or perhaps when he made waves across the football world when he announced he would forego his junior year at Florida State to accept and pursue his studies at the University of Oxford in England, after becoming just one of 32 Americans to be selected for that year's Rhodes Scholarship. And if none of that rings a bell, then maybe the last name sounds familiar, as Myron Rolle had a handful of cousins that played in the NFL, albeit with varying levels of professional success. Brian Rolle was a linebacker at Ohio State who played a couple of seasons in the NFL with the Eagles and then a year on the Steelers practice squad. Samari was a former first-team All-Pro safety for the Tennessee Titans and Baltimore Ravens. Samari, like younger cousin Myron, did a little over a decade later, played his college ball at Florida State. And then, of course, perhaps the best known of the entire Rolle family is Antrell, the three-time Pro Bowler and former number 8 overall pick out of the University of Miami, who went on to Super Bowl glory with the Giants back in 2011. It's tough to fathom such widespread success in a single family, but as crazy as that sounds, it's true. And with Myron, the story is even more so unbelievable, as his journey took him from a local high school in New Jersey to the gridiron at Florida State and a brief stint in the NFL, to a successful career as a neurosurgeon, and subsequently to the front lines in the midst of a global pandemic, with no shortage of impressive achievements and stops in between. In fact, if you had tried to sell Myron Rolle's story to a Hollywood exec as a movie, they would probably come back and tell you no, not because the story isn't compelling, but because it's simply not realistic enough. The Myron Rolle story starts in Texas, where his family immigrated from the Bahamas shortly after he was born, but the Rolles were not in Texas long. Myron and his 4 older siblings, Marchant, Marvis, Mordecai, and McKinley, spent most of their childhoods in Galloway Township, New Jersey, a 35,000-person township near Atlantic City. As a promising young student and athlete, Myron earned and accepted a scholarship to attend the Hun School of Princeton, a highly prestigious prep school in Jersey. Although it was an amazing opportunity, Rolle said he never really felt like he fit in there. He came from an exemplary, middle-class family, but a middle-class family nonetheless. So when his dad would pick him up from school in the family's Ford Taurus, he never really had much trouble spotting him, as all the other parents were driving Bentleys or whatever luxury automobile brand they fancied. The culture shock didn't stop Rolle from succeeding at Hun, not by a long shot. In fact, Rolle had success in damn near everything he did, and even as a youth he had no shortage of interest. A Renaissance man of sorts, Rolle played saxophone in the band, starred in the school play, had a 4.0 GPA, and he was widely considered to be on the short list of top college football recruits, not just in New Jersey or at his position, but in the entire country, period. And when his junior year came around, colleges were quite literally lining up for his services, a remarkable 83 colleges to be exact. Obviously, Myron was a different kind of teenager, and this was evident in his college selection process. Unlike most of the other top recruits who were eager to find the best football fit or a fun party school or a program that would help them get to the NFL, Myron had a whole different criterion that he was working with to make a decision. I wanted to look for a school that I enjoyed watching play football first, Myron told SB Nation, before delivering the caveat, which I don't think I'm going out on a limb in saying most other top recruits aren't interested in. He said, and I quote, "But I wanted the school to accept all my AP credits. Also, do they have a medical school on campus?" End quote. Yep, by the time he was graduating high school, Myron not only aspired to play professional football, but he also had his post-NFL career in mind. and not insurance sales or wealth management or coaching, which are fields that many former athletes transition into, but rather becoming a neurosurgeon. Talk about ambition. Anyways, during his decision-making process, Rolle had the good fortune of connecting with Garrett Johnson, a former champion shot putter at Florida State who was a Rhodes Scholar, like Rolle would go on to be. Johnson spoke glowingly about his time in Tallahassee, and of course, Myron being Myron, he graduated from Hunt a semester early and started his studies at Florida State University in January of 2006. So when most high school seniors are knee-deep in graduation and prom senioritis, Myron Rolle was already finishing his first semester of classes at FSU. But this time, instead of being the middle-class kid getting invited to sit in the floor seats at Knicks games or to parties on his friends' family yachts, he was suddenly the square and the nerd, as he put it, amongst kids who came from rough backgrounds, and they immediately wrote him off as an outcast. A lot of them thought I was this little goody two-shoes kind of dude, Rolle explained. They thought I was soft. And this put a target on his back early and often. That was until he had an opportunity to check that. At the time, summer workouts at Florida State had a tradition. Following the team workout, coaches would have the players run dozens of sprints from the back of one end zone to the other, colloquially known as the 110s. But there was a catch. The coaches offered a way out. If two players agreed to box one another as a team-building exercise, the entire team would run less 110s. It was during this team-building exercise that one of the players on the team, Marcus Sims, a mountain of a running back who weighed upwards of 230 pounds, called out Rolle, wanting to find out what the well-spoken kid who tucked in his shirt was made of. But once again, Myron being Myron, he was prepared. He knew this day was coming and had spent hours studying tape on Muhammad Ali, and just like everything Rolle did, he had no trouble learning it and applying it. Rolle subsequently whooped Sims, which helped him ingratiate himself with the team and ultimately become a leader and key player on the Seminoles. But even as a respected member and contributor, Rolle was always different. He always had something else going on, either with academic or extracurriculars or whatever it was at the time. I mean, think about it. He was a 3-year starter, graduated with a degree in exercise science in just 2.5 years, sporting a 3.75 GPA, was projected to be a high first-round pick in the upcoming draft. Once again, though, Rolle was torn between his passions. He had been encouraged by the school administrators to apply for a Rhodes Scholarship to spend a year at the University of Oxford and was one of 32 people in the entire country to be accepted. And as amazing of an accomplishment as this was, accepting it would undeniably be putting his NFL dream in danger, as scouts felt it made him too different in a sport built on teamwork. The choice was his, millions of dollars guaranteed, or joining the fraternity of Rhodes Scholars, which he describes as a truly special demarcation. This was not an easy decision for Rolle, and he said it took a lot of arm twisting to decide on accepting the scholarship. But one piece of advice from his parents stands out to him as the final push in accepting. He didn't specify which parent said it, but the line is powerful. Your life is not your own, you're living a life of example for other people. And once imparted with that wisdom, Rolle deferred his NFL dreams until the 2010 draft and went to Oxford, where he unsurprisingly succeeded yet again. Although he trained religiously during his studies, time away from the game plummeted his drafted stock, and he went from a surefire first-rounder to the 207th overall pick. But nevertheless, he had achieved the pinnacle of success in both academics as a Rhodes Scholar and football in being drafted to the NFL. His NFL career was short, playing just 2 years of the 4-year deal he had to sign with the Titans, but for Rolle, that just meant he was on to the next dream. He enrolled at the Florida State University College of Medicine and graduated in 4 years, and then it was off to Harvard Medical School and Massachusetts General Hospital for neurosurgery residency. Which brings us back to the present day in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic. With the world, and specifically the northeastern metropolises, on high alert, Rolle volunteered to put his brain to work at his hospital and help treat patients afflicted with the virus, as the staff needed an all-hands-on-deck effort to treat the insane volume of patients they had. Although Rolle's discipline is neurosurgery, which didn't necessarily prepare him for dealing with this specific situation, he has quickly adapted and offered a fitting football metaphor to explain his transition from neurosurgeon to the pandemic response team. Here's how Rolle put it. Obviously, neurosurgery is not directly connected to this upper respiratory illness. But just like in football, if you're called to do something different that you weren't expecting, you adjust, you adapt. They're showing us a new formation that we didn't see on tape. You've got to hunker down and get the job done. In my opinion, this novel disease is something like that. A formation, a personnel package that we haven't seen before. We have to meet the challenge, and I'm happy to be able to join the fight. What an awesome comparison from an awesome guy who has accomplished more in his 33 years than most would in 3 lifetimes. While there is still a lot of uncertainty out there, and we are not yet out of the woods, with brilliant minds like Myron Rolle on the front lines and a collective effort from the rest of us, hopefully we will be able to find a new normal soon enough. Do you have any suggestions for an interesting story we should talk about? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you're new here and you haven't subscribed yet, now's a great time to hit that subscribe button down below too. If you like the video, then like the video, we'd really appreciate it. And last but not least, tune in to TPS every single day for more cool videos. We'll see you next time.